True or false, if you have a family member in another state who is removed by the courts or CPS and you wish to obtain custody of their children, or they wish for you to obtain custody of their children, can they just send them to you and boom, you're now the caretaker? False. And here is why. For a child to go from one state to another state, what has to happen is called an interstate compact. It's called an ICPC, which is an interstate compact on the placement of children. So it's basically a agreement that has been made among all 50 states that agrees for the state the child was removed from and the state the child is intended to go to will work together to ensure that the placement is safe and appropriate, will meet their needs, et cetera, et cetera. So what does that entail? It's a long process, okay? It can take months. Like, I would say count on 6 months at least, and if it happens sooner, great. If it doesn't, then, you at least had your expectations set low for the timeline. When an ICPC is requested from the state, you have to basically rely on another department in another state, city, county to conduct home visits, background checks, interviews with the people who would be in the placement, ensure that all of the needs of the child can be met. So they're liable, if they conduct these steps in their investigation and they determine that a placement in their city, in their county is safe and reliable and appropriate for a child in your state, then you send the child and something happens, you can look back at that ICPC and say, what about, you said this, XYZ. So, it's super important. It takes a long time. It's one of those things that if you get assigned an ICPC case, it's like, oh, okay. It kind of gets put on the back burner, unfortunately. You've got to really be consistent about following up with all of the workers. Usually there's a placement person who's assigned and you can remain in touch with them. But there's constantly kids coming into custody, kids who are in custody who are disrupting placements who are disrupting children. So there's a lot that gets pushed to the forefront, and an ICPC ends up becoming kind of like, I'll look at that when I have a moment. And it's unfortunate. It is. It's just how it is right now. So if you are a family member who is aware of a child being placed in state's custody in another state, it's important to make sure they are aware of you, your presence, your interest in obtaining custody of that child. Evaluate yourself. I always recommend, get yourself in therapy, get your family in therapy, make sure you guys are prepared to deal with and address the things that are going to come up, the stress of this as a family and the trauma and the support and the things you as a united family are going to need to do differently or for the first time ever to support the child who will be coming into your home. You guys have a lot of stuff to get through too. So, and then usually in the meantime, they'll start really building up the relationship, letters, emails, text messages, phone calls, FaceTimes, sometimes, and then that gives you an opportunity if it's looking promising, you are gonna get custody of that child, then those are the times where you're like, okay, well, can I be a part of the parent-teacher conference so I know where they're at academically? Can I be a part of this doctor's appointment? Let me find a doctor for them to come to. Let me set up that appointment. So you have a lot of work to get done in that time if you want to do it safely and appropriately to meet really the needs of somebody moving from a different state that they've maybe known their whole life or maybe are just getting accustomed to somewhere new. And then the county, city, state agency that obtains the child, like when the child comes to that, the state where the child is ordered into custody typically maintains custody of that child until they exit custody. But the state where the child now lives can sometimes be typically held responsible for maintaining contact with that child. So if a child's placed in Tennessee out of Florida and they're in foster care here with a family member, Tennessee foster care is responsible for maintaining that child on their caseload and making the monthly visit requirements, making sure that child has their annual physical, their dental appointments every 6 months. So it's a lot to ask. And so that is why it takes so long. There are a lot of considerations. If the child has specific medical needs or mental health needs, you've got to make sure, do you live in a town that you'll easily be able to access like the services that they need in the home? Or, if they have a cardiology appointment every 3 months, is there a cardiologist close? Things like that. So that is, in a roundabout way, why those things take so long and why you can't just go pick up a child and bring them. And even if you're the biological parent, that would be a whole nother video.